Hello, welcome to this UK Automation Forum event. We've run several this year about all kinds of different topics. The UK Automation Forum is the brainchild of Automate UK, the umbrella group over PPMA show as we are here, and it's designed to bring together experts from industry, education, policymakers to try and influence the conversation as to why the UK lags as it does in adopting automation. I'm going to start off by introducing I'm not. They're going to introduce themselves. So let me first ask from the other end. Off you go. So John.
I'm John Quinn from Marks and Spencer.
Hello. Just one moment. Technical hitch. Can't get the stuff.
Hello. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, brilliant.
So good morning. Good morning. I'm John Quinn from Marks and Spencers, and I work on the technical side of the M&S, making sure that we have product to the right quality, and I've been in M&S for 16 years, and I have been working with automation as a specialism within the business to try and help our suppliers and our business to move forward with automation. Thanks.
Thank you. Rosie?
Hi, I'm Rosie Davis. I'm Managing Director at Rico Automation. We specialise in case packing, robot palletising and delivery of AMRs. I've been in the industry for 14 years and I have experience in industrial robot integrations as well as process and packaging machinery of all kinds.
Thank you. James?
Good morning. So I'm James Coulsbrook. I'm Chairman of Automate UK, who obviously are the providers of fantastic exhibitions like this. And then day to day, I'm Managing Director of a company called Grunwald, which manufactures high-speed fresh food filling equipment for cups and buckets.
Martin?
Hi, I'm Martin Miller, Head of Engineering for Greggs. I've been in the food industry for 35 years, the likes of ABF, PepsiCo, United Biscuits, currently Head of Engineering for Greggs, and have been installing and maintaining robotic systems for the 35 years. Excellent.
Susanna?
Good morning, everybody. That's good, I can't hear myself, there we go. Morning everyone, Susanna King. I spent the whole of my career in food and beverage, capital projects, engineering, process improvement, companies like Heineken, Yo Valley in the UK. I've also done a lot of work internationally as well. I sort of slightly different to some of these guys because I'm a bit more of an independent consultant, so advising clients on how to implement automation solutions and what the business benefits are. So I guess that's my background. I've been an independent consultant and currently working for a company called JP Hildreth. A couple of my colleagues are here to join me, which is great. Good morning.
Thank you very much. So I think you'll see that we've tried to get a mix of voices in this discussion, from suppliers to users to for food manufacturers themselves. And Martin, we're going to hold him up as why hasn't he bought more robots, although I think he has probably in his 35 years. So we've discussed all kinds of things for the forum over this year, but today the premise is what would make UK food businesses adopt more robots/automation, because we know that the UK lags behind the rest of the world in robot adoption. It's really quite alarming. We're 25th in the world, so we're not Premier League. We might just be top of the championship, but we know there's a huge difference between those two divisions, and that is where we are. And we are the only G7 country that is below the world average for robot density, which is again quite shocking. So let's tackle this with the panel and start off with the basic question. I'm going to start with you, John, as why do you think food businesses are reluctant to use more automation in their factories?
I don't know if it's a reluctance. I think it's more to do with the fact, and I'll speak specifically about the industry that I work in at the minute, which is ready meal manufacture. Automation and robotics is more suited to longer runs, very fixed kind of processes, whereas potentially in ready meal manufacture you've got lots of changes, lots of ingredients, which does make automation and robotics to a degree difficult.
Yeah.
The other one would be that if you were to try and focus on potentially some of your higher volume lines, where you might have, I'll use the example, peas and carrots, which we do sell quite a few of. Even that has its problems of justifying a return on investment versus potentially having 4 people standing on a line with a very simple hand movement of tipping peas and carrots. So I would suggest it is a difficult one to crack, but I do think the biggest problem that we face in the ready meal industry is the lack of high volume runs, if that helps.
Okay, too many variants.
Too many variants, and automation lends itself to the same repetitive process over and over and over again. And I have been working on a project recently whereby I did ask the question, why do we have to have such a big machine to put a simple pea into a pack? And somebody did come up with, we've got a smaller version, but even that smaller version, when you've added on all the other different bits and pieces to bring it to a line, increases the price quite dramatically. So my challenge would be is, how do you simply automate a simple process of tipping something into a tray? That's the challenge.
Okay, Rosie, what do you feel? I mean, you sell and market equipment that lends itself, that is fine to be big at the end of the line. You can handle anything, can't you?
To a degree, Gail, yes. I think just to follow on from John's comments, really, I think the misconception maybe on times is that integration of robotics isn't flexible enough. Will it adapt to our future packing needs? Because in an ever-changing consumer environment, your packaging will change, the product will change, and heavy investment upstream. Is the robot potentially in any point of that production process going to be flexible enough to adapt to your future needs? And as a supplier and an integrator, I think it is our job really to make sure that yes, it can be adaptable and it can be flexible, and we need to recognise that food manufacturing in particular is an industry where it is ever changing, and our products need to adapt to suit those needs.
Sure.
What John, you didn't touch on it, but we'll probably talk about it, is the space requirement, because food manufacturers, they build their factories, they're not necessarily factories for the future, and at the end of the line where potentially there is a need for integration of robotics, there physically isn't the room to install, so that is a big challenge that they face.
James, why do you think?
So it's an interesting point. I hear what John's saying. He's exactly right. I mean, my old sales director from the German factory used to say that you don't view the food industry in the UK as a food industry, it's a fashion industry. So what by that I mean is a machine that we have in Germany is probably making 4 or 5 products a day. A machine in the UK is probably making about 30 different variants. And I think automation traditionally, as John's saying, has been about high throughput, how can you do it, long runs, and automation. And it's not just robotics, it's automation has been too biased towards that. And I think where we're now getting better and we're on catch-up, both in terms of the technology but also the messaging, is that a lot of the equipment now is looking at flexibility and how you can achieve not just the products you want to make today, but any variable you might want the next 5 to 10 years. Now there are limitations in that. So a bottle machine can't do pouches in a year. There are items like that. But there are also other technologies that we can now use to get longer runs in the fashion industry. So I think you'll see a lot of the equipment, the traditional kind of packaging machinery equipment in this hall. You'll see a lot of stuff where they're talking about things like extended shelf life, MAP, things like that. And that's not just to keep the product fresher, it gives the ability that you can run longer to make production runs longer. I think the other thing with John's saying about compactness, which we haven't even scratched the surface of in the food industry, but they are in other sectors, is the use of cobots, which are small, adaptable, and couldn't be more a robotic version of a Swiss Army knife.
Lovely, yes. Martin, right, we're all looking to you now as the food representative.
As usual, you'll get the cynical view from me. I guess there's two things, customer and consumer. So from a consumer point of view, yes, you've got to build in the flexibility because you're not quite sure what the consumer is going to want in the next 2 to 3 years, and things can change, so the products that you're handling change. But we're ignoring the customer, and a lot of our food is sold through retailers, and retailers will not be giving you more than a year's worth of contract. And so a lot of businesses will be looking hard at, can that piece of kit be useful for me in the long term, or is it specifically for a contract that I'm looking after? And if it's for a contract that may move to a competitor, you probably want it to pay back within 1 or 2 years, otherwise you're saddled with something on the P&L that's going to hurt you. Yeah. So I think the retail environment also has a massive effect on the uptake of robotics.
Certainly at Greggs, of course, your retail customer is you. Susanna.
Some really good points made by everybody here. I think the one point I think that I would pick out specifically, I guess with a more consulting hat on, is I think there's a concern or a question if you automate a process, are you going to increase your waste? And how does that get replicated? If you have a person, how good are the systems that spot defects on your product before it gets packed, that kind of thing. So I think it's one of the questions which food manufacturers are, it's a question that needs to be answered, I guess, by the industry to say, how do we make sure that the waste level doesn't increase as a result of implementing an automation project, when clearly there's an ROI on this project, and it's making sure that it's not made worse, I guess. So, yeah. Okay. I agree with the flexibility aspect of things. That's a really big one in UK food as well.
Okay, thank you. So what barriers to adoption? We've talked about the length of contracts, and that, John, you're a lovely chap, but you're sitting there with the M&S hat on. So is that one of the main barriers, do you think? Do you think that, look, I've gone all excited now. Is that one of the main barriers, is length of contracts, or is it culture or technical resource?
There's certain things that I will probably have to be slightly careful on what I say. I do still have a son to put through university.
Can I just stop you there by saying I should have said at the start that these are going to be personal opinions you're getting here and not representative of any company that these people may work for now or in the future.
So, just to refresh, the question is, what do you think the barriers are? I'll be honest, I did actually speak to a few people that I know within the industry, and I did get some other input, and one of the problems would be that it's the actual process of installation in the factories as well, which does cause problems. It's the procurement at the start. It's making sure that you have the technical competencies in the factories to run the machine even after it's been installed. So some of the feedback that I have is there does seem to be a reticence to try and implement automation robotics in factories because there is a lack of skills potentially to even start the process and make sure that you put in place the right requirements to deliver what you're looking to deliver at the end of the process. So the key thing that came from that question was there is a lack of technical resource to help install it, manage it, and run it after you've actually put it into the site.
there's lots of aftercare though from robot installers though, Rosie, and I'm
Yes.
assuming.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, many integrators will offer aftercare service packages, and of course advise on what consumables to hold in stock, and hopefully it's the product is delivered with really robust software that enables users to make changes depending on their production requirements with ease. We're not asking our customers to have fully trained robot programmers in their engineering teams. We don't need people to be PLC trained to use our product. It should be delivered, and there are integrators that will deliver it with software that enable ease of use for your operators. Do I go back to the barriers question?
Yes, absolutely. Sorry.
I think it's important. I think a challenge sometimes is getting the buy-in. So you're not always dealing just with the project engineer. Of course, the concept and solution has to be signed off by procurement, and some people may not have any prior knowledge of automation, and it's a challenge really to try and get that buy-in from senior management. And the length of time that this decision-making process goes on, sometimes you'll find yourself in an instance where you've got a concept, you can prove concept with some simulations potentially, or even trials in-house. Many integrators will offer trials to prove concept before they deliver it to your site. Again, giving the end user some extra reassurance on the capabilities of the technology. And then before you know it, your key contact has actually moved on and has moved to a different business and industry, and then you've got to start the whole process all over again. So that can be quite a challenge.
Sure. Barriers in terms of what you think, James?
So I think actually what Rosie and John said is exactly right. We've got to get better as industrial automation, packaging machinery. We've got to get better at the front end at proving the concept and having some recognisable standards that give confidence on how equipment works. We have some DIN standards on things like machine availability, but they're quite nuanced. We need to get better with things like integrator schemes that we're doing with the bar element of Automate UK and with the UK element, and we probably need to do it with process and packaging machinery. And then the other thing that John's saying is for every bit of R&D that our members are doing on equipment, they actually need to be doing twofold R&D on the service element of it. It is so crucial that the people who are in this room are not, and exhibiting in this room, are not just selling and forgetting. We need to be offering, because we do have a skills gap as a set of suppliers, we need to be getting better at offering really easy customer service to support for the life cycle of equipment. And then the other thing we got to do is we've got to make it that everything that is any bit of packaging machinery or processing equipment needs to be as easy to use as an iPhone. And at the moment there's too many things where it's technically hard to run equipment and you haven't got the skill set in the factory to do it, which means that people are finding robotics and automation in the food industry as, almost facing a bit of a cliff face, because you don't know is it going to do what it says on the tin at the front end, and then you don't know whether you can run the thing afterwards. So we need to, as an industry, get so much better on those two elements. This is not engineering, this is not R&D, it's the soft skill element. We have to get so much better on it.
Okay, that's interesting. Martin?
Yeah, I'd echo that. I mean, trying to keep robotic systems healthy in a factory is a difficult thing. It's difficult for us to attract all the right skills. Trying to find controls engineers who want to work in an FMCG factory is very, very difficult, because most of the guys don't like that kind of environment. Having easy to maintain systems where you can just plug components out, plug components in, they'll go again, is another thing. And I guess for me personally, one of the things that when somebody is trying to sell me an automated setup, the first thing I'll say is show me a factory where it's actually worked for 5 years, and let me go and talk to those engineers, get the experiences from them. Has the after sales been good? Has the machinery been reliable? And that's one of the reasons why in food we tend to be very, very slow adopters of technology, because we just want somebody else to have learnt all the lessons by the time it comes into my factory. I know it's going to work, and if somebody jets it down with a Karcher high pressure washer, it's going to survive, because that's what will happen.
So, have you been able to do that? Have you achieved that? Can you go? Have you been taken around others' factories? Are they happy for you to do that?
Yeah, I think as an engineering community, we're pretty good at allowing people in to have a look and just give the experience, preferably without the sales rep as well, so they tell you the truth.
You looked at me then.
Susanna, so with the clients that you work with or whatever, what do you find you have to overcome for them to make them brave enough to take the leap from, 20 women on the line doing something or packing boxes or whatever to spending a lot of money?
I've just speaking with a couple of UK clients I'm currently working with. I think one of the major hurdles is actually in terms of business benefits and project payback. I mean, a few years ago, it had to be less than 2 years for a payback project. And whilst, I get the sense from the conversations I'm having and others in the industry that's extending, because it's a realisation that it's an investment, but it's still a very high bar to clear. If you're looking at savings, waste, labour, etc., and I still think there's a slight reluctance to actually press the button. There's questions around the technology. Skills is a big point which my colleagues have mentioned as well. So I guess it's a number of factors, and also the ability for the business to sign up to a business case that says we're sure this is going to work, and that niggling doubt that might linger in someone's mind. Are they prepared to sign up to what is a big investment for the business?
Okay, well, let's move on slightly. So many people thought that Brexit, we've had a lot of cheap labour in the UK. We've enjoyed that over the years, and maybe that's another reason why we're not investing. But then Brexit came, and everyone said, "Oh, we've got no workers." And I think some of the automation people thought, "Oh, this could be a bit of impetus for us. This could be the one. COVID didn't work. Brexit might do it for us." Have you seen that, or have you seen attitudes change at all? James, you're nodding.
Yeah, I mean, before I sound like Nigel Farage, we've all got aims, haven't we? Brexit, has caused many issues. However, has given a bit of advantage in fresh food manufacture, because the people aren't available, is that the hand is being forced to automate products that would be hand-o-matic before Brexit. So it has given us a bit of an espresso shot, but then trying to find the equipment that then's flexible enough to replace the persons, John's point, we're on catch-up on that, and it's active and it's happening, but it is on catch-up. So for sure, actually, there not being the availability of labour in the food factories is playing to the advantage of this industry, but we haven't taken full advantage yet. There is a catch-up.
Okay, Susanna, you were nodding vigorously.
Yeah, so I think there has been a shift in everything pre-COVID, as I said, that payback in terms of automation projects was a very, very high bar to clear. That is changing, but I think now some of the conversations I'm having with clients and, clients who are looking to look at their automation options, one of the number one reasons for looking at the projects is the business savings, but it's also we just can't reliably get the people to do what we need to do. So, that driver is definitely there, but it's in the context of we've got a lot of catch up to do in this space. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you. John, in terms of M&S and things, what do you think that retailers could do differently that would help more adoption for food manufacturers?
That's a very difficult question to answer. I do think that there's some very retailers are always going to want to have product on the shelves without stating the obvious. I do think that suppliers do need to take a certain viewpoint on what things can I actually automate, because automation has been around for quite a period of time, and I'm talking about end-of-line automation, collation of product. There are solutions out there which are quite labour-intensive. So my challenge to some suppliers would be, why aren't you already stacking product into trays, it's a repetitive process. Somebody's just lifting stuff and putting it into a tray. Now, some supplier, quite a few suppliers are going down that track, but I would suggest that the very general guidance that I can give would be that there are automation solutions that exist, and the challenge would be, why aren't you putting them in? What is stopping you actually putting these things in? And some of them are that there is a lack of space. Totally understand that, but yeah, I think that's the best way to put it to you. There is automation that exists, and you should be thinking about why you're not putting it in.
I mean, certainly end-of-line equipment is flexible by nature in a way, isn't it? That if it doesn't matter what you're packing in the boxes, if it's loading cases, no one minds what's in that case.
Yeah.
So that's maybe an easier win. But in other areas where that's labour intensive, I mean, businesses you've worked at, Martin, you've invested in automation along the way. You haven't just kept people.
Yeah, I guess the thing that's changed has been the swing towards own label. So, if you go back 10, 15 years, own label was probably 5 to 10% of what you did. And now it can easily be 50, 60%, even if you've got strong brands of your own. And the retailers exploit that. They will quite happily move large volumes, and we've seen various factories close because of the movement of retailers' products from one supplier to another. And so I still come back to the fact that unless you're going to get longer term 2-3 year contracts and some certainty, the likelihood that you're going to invest heavily, and most of the systems we'll be looking at are €1 million plus, you're not going to put the money into it because there's a fear of failure. But
talking about the finance of this kind of thing, is there more flexible finance could be used in this area than has been traditionally?
Not really my area of expertise, but I know most of the FDs I speak to would say, here's the dynamics that you're working with, and here's your rate of return, and if it's too long, you're not going to get the money.
Yeah, even though you're selling the benefits of everything. Rosie.
Yeah, I was just going to say there are suppliers out there that will offer lease or hire for robots, even extending to AGVs, AMRs. There are other options. It doesn't have to be a CapEx purchase. It can be a lease, a rental. And I think I speak for many integrators that will offer that as an option and as an alternative to offset directly against your operational costs. Certainly supports those shorter term contracts maybe that the retailers are required to fulfill. That's a sensible option where that is potentially a challenge in the business.
Sure. Right, so let's move on now. We're just kind of cracking on with the conversation. I'm going to just say, what one thing do you think would make the food industry braver in this area? Just the one thing that you think, if only we could get X, Y, or whatever. What do you think? I'll start with you, Susanna, because you'll be getting the hospital pass of the last person on the panel.
So what's the one thing to make the food industry a bit more brave to take the jump?
I mean, would flexibility of equipment, I mean, if people could make it's all very well saying you've got to buy a robot or you've got to buy that, but if it's still not doing the job that it needs to do, why would they do that?
I think it's a bit of a partnership, to be honest, between food manufacturers and suppliers, knowing that what's going to be procured or rented, whatever option is choose, is actually going to work technically. So I think it's maybe just having that confidence, and I think suppliers and integrators can really help on that journey. I know some of that's happening already, but it's translating that into confidence to make a decision, really.
Okay, Martin?
Yeah, I think that one of the issues of the food industry is we tend to go from your 20 ladies on a line to lights out overnight and expect it all to work. And we need to be a bit more pragmatic in the approach and literally do each work cell on its own case and build towards automation rather than just try and do everything in one go. You will be amazed out of those 20 ladies on a line that one or two of them will be doing subtle things that you will never ever pick up by doing a time and motion study.
Sure.
But they make or break the line. And so doing automation in a very steady fashion and not going from state X to Y in one go would be my wish.
Okay, so it's more of, I don't like to quote Strictly Come Dancing here, but it's more of a journey to the...
Absolutely a journey, yes.
Okay. James?
We're talking about flexibility, but I think there's an element of also standardization that we could look at to adopt automation and make it accessible. If you look at the end of line stuff like Rosie does, if Rosie had an industry standard of with the retailers of say 2 or 3 reusable plastic crates that you could palletize, you would have the ability to put anything in the same crate, and it's a sustainability element. So I think there's 2 elements, is that we have to look as an industry from John to Martin to Rosie to me to Susanna. We represent every element of where we can standardise and what economic and environmental benefit to that, and where we can be flexible. So I think we have to work and look at where we can stream down and standardise certain end-of-line elements, but then actually look at the food manufacturer of the actual food item to be as flexible as possible.
Thank you. Rosie?
Yeah, I think we've all touched on it. Martin suggested speaking to peers. If people allow you to go into their factories and view a project and an installation that has been successful, and you can actually get and speak to the operators of such systems, then I take that offer up because that's going to give you a lot more confidence in the solution that you're buying. And with the software capabilities today, there are many integrators that will offer offline simulations to prove that the requirements are met under your URS, speed requirements. Have you verified the amount of units you need to fulfill all of the project obligations potentially? The software is out there to allow us to do that, to replicate the full line and simulate it before you actually give the PO across. So it's useful. And of course I've mentioned it, but trials as well. If you don't get to go and see it in factory, because people are sometimes sensitive about sharing project installations, look at the testimonials, read the reviews, and speak. Come to the PPMA and encourage more people to come to the PPMA and talk to people directly about what technology is available, and make sure you select the integrator that has a lot of experience in that specific robotic application, because many of us will offer solutions in different applications. You might find some integrators particularly specialize in case loading or mobile robotics or machine tending, whatever it may be. Find the right one that will suit your business and really vet them and see what resources they have in-house. Have they got a robust after-sales support department? Where are their engineers located? Do they offer remote support as well? Because that's a great way of connecting directly with the machines and diagnosing faults online. So there's a lot you can do.
Okay, so John, do you think, you're saying you encourage people to invest automation, your suppliers, so do you think retailers could help in this area?
I think it's within retailers' need to be encouraging automation. There's no point we can't get away from it. There is going to be more of a skills gap and we do need to encourage automation. What I would try and suggest, and I've been sitting listening as it's come up towards me here, is if it was me in the food industry, not on the other side, I'd be thinking to myself, how can I sell something to a retailer that's going to get me business? So coming in with as you've said, and I think I've had some dealings with Siemens in the past where they can model certain situations, where they can model a factory, and they can say things like, if you do X and Y, this is what you will get, this is the return on the investment. But I suppose the one adage that keeps coming to my mind is to keep it simple. Because ultimately what we're doing is we're packing food, we're manufacturing food, putting it in a tray, putting it in a box, and putting it out the front door. So I feel, having been in the industry for 25 years, that we have overcomplicated things in a lot of areas, which I'm not going to go into here. But I do think we need to use some of the tools to actually sell automation to retailers. So come in with a package to say, we've sat down and looked at this particular line, you've asked us to tender for this business. If we do this, and I'm literally talking here as John Quinn, if you were to do this, this is what we can deliver. Are you prepared to actually engage with us on that? But there's none of that forthcoming, to my knowledge.
Yeah.
Come and sell the automation a bit harder. Come and say, you keep saying we need to automate, but in actual fact, it's kind of like, how are you going to sell a car to me? Why would I buy this car versus that car, as an example?
Yeah. Okay, brilliant. I'm just going to say, does anyone think the government could make a difference in this area? I'm sorry I haven't checked whether all of us paid for our own clothes today, but I'm pretty sure we have. Martin?
Personally, I've found every time we've chased government grants with the various businesses I've worked with, it's just been a wall of red tape, and you need to be a professional grant applier to get through it. So I don't expect anything.
You're not hopeful. You're not hopeful.
No.
James.
Representing Automate UK, obviously we are very hopeful. However, it needs to be a seismic change, because I think I ranted about this on a podcast recently, is that there are so many different schemes for so many different things that people can't be bothered to use the government's schemes there are at the moment, because they're too bureaucratic and they can't be bothered with it. And by the time they bothered with it, John's given the account to somebody else. And not be criticising John, but that is literally happening. Where automation is being taken up really hugely in Eastern Europe at the moment, in huge numbers, is because their governments just have a simple automation levy, which is basically, what does that translate as? It's like we had with R&D tax credits, where it is basically a taxation offset against corporation tax. That's what it would look like in this country. So if you got rid of all the schemes, and I know I'm kind of Mike Wilson's supply teacher today, you know, Mike's got the MTC, which is ready to do all those schemes, but he's fighting so many systems. If he had all the food manufacturers and all the food retailers with a simple automation levy, we would have MTCs in every town. So this system doesn't need to be bureaucratic and complicated, because people are not taking the investment at the moment from the government. So it's not like the investment isn't there, it's not being used because it's too complicated. Simple automation levy, which basically people can offset against corporation tax, and you're there. And then the adoption of automation has got nothing to do with flexibility, nothing to do with anything we're saying. It's just there, and it will be adopted because there's a financial incentive. And nobody is producing food for the good of it. They're doing it for P&L. So that's what needs to happen. That is what we're going to do. That we had Peter at the Labour conference on Monday really ramming that home. That's what we're doing with Make UK, is cut the red tape, cut the schemes, automation levy.
Interesting, thank you. Rosie?
In Wales, and I don't know if any of you are based in Wales, but in previous years our local Welsh government have offered food manufacturers 50% towards the cost of implementing robotics and automation in their factories. So if you might be registered in England, but if you operate from Wales, you may be eligible for that if they are still running it and if the pot is still full. I'm not sure anymore.
You look at it, the robot density in Wales is stronger than the robot density in England, so that's telling you that it works, yeah?
John, any thoughts about the government? Yeah. That you can say.
If it's not right, I said it convincingly, but no, I think it is. Yeah.
I think, Gail, what I would say on this one is I will read out an answer that someone gave me to this question, if that makes any sense, because I did struggle with that particular question. So here we go. The decisions need to be commercial, but producers and processors need to engage with initiatives such as those in the EU and the UK. Innovate to plan ahead. Processors need to use what is commercially and reliably available as proven. Governments are committed to improving the status of all industry sectors, and yes, the new government will do more, especially where competitiveness and safety of the workforce, especially related to repetitive work and work-related injuries, are relevant. So
Okay.
there you go. That is somebody else's
Sorry?
opinion, but
I need a script writer.
You've got good eyesight to be able to read that.
huh?
Your eyesight's on point,
I'm
isn't
great
it?
with this. I'm good.
Yeah.
It's the distance is a problem.
Well, I'm going to open up questions now to the audience because, so fill your boots. And has anyone got anything they'd like to ask the panel about automation adoption, robots, why they can't sell robots, or have they been so brilliant?
We've got one at the back.
Oh, okay. Can someone... Oh, thanks, Ken. Oh, you need mine. Oh.
You're not in control anymore.
I'm in control now. It's more of a general observation that I hope will form into a question as I start speaking at the microphone. But it seems to me that listening to this very interesting discussion, the end goal that you have in mind, or the end goal that you think businesses have in mind, is that they have to buy more automation and they have to get rid of the 20 ladies on the line. And it kind of strikes me that potentially that you're using the wrong metrics when you talk to businesses and you're trying to get them to adopt automation. Because fundamentally, food businesses don't really care about getting rid of the people or buying more automation from you guys. They care, like you said before, they care about P&L. And more in today's climate, they care about something that's going to impact the P&L in a 12-month or less period, which puts you guys in a difficult position, right? And there was something else that someone said at some point: how do we overcome this lack of bravery or indecision? And he started to talk about reference visits. I think maybe the focus of those reference visits that you've been organising is potentially misplaced as well, because there's no question that the technology works, right? The automotive industry and the processed chemical industry is light years ahead of quiche manufacturing in Burton-upon-Trent, right? So it works. I think what they need to see is that we had a plan. This is what we did to overcome the problem using the plan, and this is the impact that it had on the P&L. So it's not a case of getting boots on the ground in the factory, it's getting companies to open up and talk about what their experience was like from a financial perspective. So I guess my question is, are the metrics that you're using to sell automation more geared towards your own individual motives and not so much around the customer? And I think that's maybe where the disconnect is. You're not solving that problem, you're solving your problem. How do we get them to buy?
I'll just pick up on the one comment, and it's the replacement of labour. And I was fortunate enough to visit one of our installations last week, where they've adopted 7 depalletising systems, 17 AMRs, and they've kept all their labour, but it just means that they will increase their production capacity, which is fantastic. And
I was going to make exactly the same point. It's not about taking people out. There is a finite amount of people out there, and I could take you to some of our factories where we know it's very, very hard to recruit, but we're growing like mad, and we need to be able to get more capacity out. So it's about capacity, not just about getting rid of people and improving the P&L.
Anyone else?
Yeah, but another point that you mentioned is I think sometimes we're a bit fascinated at my side of the fence with how many it does a minute, what it's made out of, what PLC it does. and we don't promote, and this is probably a failing of Automate UK, and it's a reason why we have UK Automation Forum, but and other stuff we need to do it. I look at my American colleagues, PPMA, who literally do what we do in America, and they do report upon report on feasibility studies and actual studies on different types of food factories and pharma factories, and what everything looks like. So it's made out of stainless steel, it's 316, it's doing 200 a minute, it's actually what it looks like and how it works. So I think we at Automate UK need to get a lot better at that. It's the Strictly Come Dancing journey. We're not selling the journey, so we have a responsibility representing the people in this hall to get much better than that, and we aim to, but you're exactly right, is that we have to promote the journey.
Okay, anyone else got any questions for the panel? Well, thank you very much.
I think I tend to agree with Martin when he spoke about commitments from the end users, Marks & Spencer, Tesco's and whatnot. And why would you go and invest millions and millions of pounds on automated systems when all of a sudden they could just pull the contract on you? So I think there's a real onus on the end user, the retailers, to give longer term commitments to the suppliers, so they are then prepared to spend all that money. Yes, if the payback is 4 years, then people are prepared to invest in that if they've got a 4-year contract, because they're financially the same after that. But yeah, you can see those suppliers, to spend that sort of money if they haven't got that commitment, it's very difficult to convince your finance director to do that. So
I'm just asking a question in general here. Are German retailers, do they give longer contracts, or do French retailers, or? Yes.
In essence, well, they do. Right, they do two things, but we don't necessarily want to go there. So no, we don't want to go there. So Aldi and Lidl will be typically a salads producer that we've got in Hanover. Aldi and Lidl have got are giving 7-year contracts, and they're also only probably handling about 15% of the SKUs that the equivalent factory will have. So you have two elements there. You have longer contract and you have less products. So that makes it easier. But we can't convince 68 million people in this country to have less flavours of crisps. It is what it is.
Quite right.
Yeah, it's true. So why we need so many flavours of hummus, I don't know. Yeah, so it's exactly that. I think retailers are starting to give longer contracts, and I think that will happen, and we have rationalisation of food manufacturers. You are seeing some of the big food manufacturers strategically pull out of categories, and the way that the retailers are having to backfill that, not necessarily M&S, but is that they're having to go to retailers and give them a longer contracts. So I think that is happening a bit, but it will take time. But we are what we are. People want many flavours, and contracts are short, but still shouldn't be an adverse reason for why you can't automate.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else want to speak on this? No. You're off the hook, John.
I suppose I would have to make some type of a comment back, but again, it is a generalised comment, but it's along the lines of, and I'll not say who quoted this, but we can't take our customers for granted in M&S. We have to always put something out there that makes them want to come into our stores to buy our products. So I suppose the parallel there would be is, what do the suppliers need to do to want us to come and give them a longer term contract? And again, I quote from my source, who does give me some inspiration and has been pushing me for years to try keep pushing automation. He does say, the car industry no longer builds a line by designing it for people and then seeing if they can use robots replacing the people. The automotive sector designs the lines with robots to begin with and plans its lifetime use by engaging the supply company. So I suppose, to answer your question, it would be, I know it's difficult to invest, but sometimes you have to speculate to accumulate as well, etc. So hopefully that is helpful. without getting myself.
Okay, well, thank you very much for your question. And I think we've drawn to a close now because I think there's another...
We got a question
we've
in
got
the
one
wings.
more. Oh, one more.
Is he allowed to ask one when he hasn't come in?
I'm all right to ask, yeah. No, thank you for taking this question. I genuinely believe that people need to work on their weaknesses to, become more stronger. And this question is to the panel, basically. What do you think are the weaknesses of automations, and how do you think we can overcome the weaknesses?
Okay, then. Overcome weaknesses of automation. Martin, what weaknesses have you brought into your factories?
I think that's a total fallacy. Play to your strengths.
Oh, well, that was short and sweet.
We have no weaknesses. We are the... As the chairman of Automate UK, I would like to say that the packaging machinery industry of this country is the most cutting-edge, complete engineering sector there is. User friendliness, life cycle provider. They're the two weaknesses. Equipment's too hard to use for a minimum for an operator, and there's still too much sell and forget. Those are the two bits.
And how do you think the suppliers, yourselves, can fix that problem? Because in the industry that I work in, I work at Finlay's. We manufacture tea and coffee, and we do have automation, especially around the palletization line. I see that as a problem, the skill gap, the generic competency of the end of line users. When things don't go according to plan, they do struggle. And how can, as suppliers, help us overcome that?
So there isn't a skills gap. Here's an interesting thing, because everybody who is working on a production line, when they go for a tea break, runs their smartphone and runs their smartphone well. But what we're doing is we're not interfacing automation to be as easy as to use as their smartphone on the tea break. So we need to pitch it is that everybody who's running automation can run their iPhone. So that we as an industry need to close that gap. So so that it is so easy to use, and it's very easy. And as I say, a lot of the R&D that we're lacking in this industry at the moment isn't actually on making the engineering bit better. It's making the interface better, and it's making the support better. And we need to understand that this industry is as much about being a service provider as it is about actually making things out of metal.